All right, now we're ready for our Q&A session for this metadata-based tools and data discoverability session. So if Stephan and Dmitry can come to the stage, and Adina will get Johannes. Is this, huh? Yes?
Can you hear us?
Ooh, this might even work.
And can you say something just to test?
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Awesome.
All right. Then, questions?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here, and I hope you are able to hear me as well.
Yes, we hear you.
I have a bit of a lag.
Question to Dmitry. Within data chain, so you have a chain and you read in metadata, and then you do processing. Is there a way to dump summary of the current state of the processing through the chain so you kind of have up-to-date view of where in the chain you are, but on the file system? Because let's say you extracted the items, then you convert, then you pre-process them, right? And as we go through those stages, things change. And could I see the dashboard where we are and have it more like persistent view of things, and then maybe restart if it gets combusted?
Do you hear me or?
I think so.
Good. Really good question. So that's what customers ask the most right now. So that's functionality that we call checkpoints, data checkpoints. The problem is when you do this a processing right step by step. Each step is usually pretty heavy and resource intensive, and it fails pretty often, right? Because you made a mistake in the code, or maybe if you run LLMs doesn't respond. So tons of reasons why it can fail, right? And people don't want to first of all, you want to monitor the status, right, of the processing, and second, if you fail for whatever reason, you want to fix your code and run it again, starting from this same point, right? So
or metadata. That was my next question. Or fix metadata. So
or fix metadata, yeah. Or fix data, because you might fail because metadata, something happened with metadata. Yeah. So right now, this functionality we are working on, it will be released I hope next month. And today, the only functionality we have to kind of this incremental processing is a delta update that I showed you in the talk, when you cannot fix your mistakes at the same time, but you can process only new data, new coming data.
What is the policy, or which pieces are open source? What is your model in terms of open versus business model here?
Oh, another good question. Yes, we are an open source business for 7 years, right? And learned quite a bit of from this. So the processing framework is open source, right? So all the code that you see, right, you can just copy paste, run. It runs perfectly in local machine, right? What is not open sourced is UI, right? Because it's really, really hard to make a delineation between what will be open source, what won't be open source. It's clearly enterprise version and local version is very different. And we're okay, let's not think about this. Everything will be in closed source and proprietary part, but only framework will be, command line framework will be open source. Plus, of course, there are a lot of distributed compute related stuff, not open source, security related stuff, not open source, something that's usually they don't care about, in the small teams, right? But framework, that's the whole idea, give framework and people can use it everywhere, in any cloud, in any machine.
Very good.
Thanks. Question to Stephan. I like the approach. Shackle view is a great thing. Maybe I didn't get it. So when you store your form contents with this, how do you call dump things? Backend? Nice name. Does it automatically do a commit or something? Or where is the metadata?
No, so, well, that is a separate process. So it goes onto a file system or into a SQLite database. You can configure which one you prefer for your specific use case. Like in some cases we have, in one of those applications I showed, I think it was preloaded with something like 17,000 organization records that come from this research organization, or was it 17,000 cities? But anyways, we grab them all from some place where they are defined. We put them into the backend, and it's easier to get them quickly if it's a certain backend versus a different one. If it's a file system backend, you can then just take all of that and put it into a Git repository, which we do actually. Now, again, in some of those cases that I showed, I would be able to link you to a Git repo that is basically knowledge of that of that deployment, and you would be able to see the records. But it's not done automatically. It's something you decide whether you want to add that on.
Because I see somehow connections or similarities with the approach Andreas presented yesterday in the unconference, with this filterable list taken out of the schemas.
Yes. There's I spoke very quickly to Andreas, and we also developed a different tool, because that's more or less the querying side, or the finding it side. So the Shackle View tool allows you, it's about annotation. It also, you can find it, you can search for all of these records, but we've deployed it mostly in context where we want, we call it like a pooling, information pooling tool. And it's essentially crowdsourcing annotations or metadata creation about anything that is described by the classes in that instance, and mainly to pool that information together. But then if it's allowed, again, based on configuration, you can also find those records. And I think the findability, or the querying for having a user interface to query for the stuff is not the main focus of this annotation tool, although it obviously allows that. And that, again, as there's other implications that you need to think of when it comes to deeper level querying. So, for example, if we collect and annotate metadata through this method that we talked about, you can have it as a graph database, everything that you collected, and that can be, you can expose a Sparkle endpoint for that, and people who want to use that can use that. If you want to, which is more in line with our focus, is make tools that are actually really easy to use, because a Sparkle endpoint, understanding that is not something you would want to force upon any standard user. So then it becomes difficult to build a query interface like that based on a schema. You would think of, like, how do people search for stuff? Like, I want this data set that is coming from that type of penguin that was collected during this time frame with this beak length or something. And you would need to be able to build a tool that can automatically allow users to do that. And that's something we're definitely working on and thinking of, but it's part of the fast-moving train.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
All right. Next question. Okay.
I have a question for Johannes. So I remember that we spent quite a while last year at the hackathon to brainstorm how we could integrate dtool and DataLad, build a bridge between them. Did anything come from that yet?
I will briefly repeat that into this microphone here. So Matthias asks the question, he recalls that we hacked, the two of you hacked on dtool and DataLad last year, and asks if anything came from that initial hackathon regarding the integration between the tools. If I butchered that up too much, please feel free to come on stage and repeat it.
No, I understood both of you actually very well. I heard the initial question and also the repetition. So yes, something came of that. I didn't mention in the talk, but actually with one of the authors that I mentioned here in the list with Ilya, I worked for a little while quite intensely on implementing a data-led DTool plugin. So one is, can I actually share the screen? Does that work or won't that work?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Then give me 1 second. Screen 1. I hope that's the right screen. Yes, that's the right screen. So if you on this DTool page, if you go to interoperability, I put a little link on that data-led DTool plugin. I was actually, so initially I was hoping to continue on that in this hackathon. Then I cannot say unfortunately, but I got the position quite far away. I'm now sitting in Nagoya, so I'm not able to join in person, and I had to withdraw my my suggestion for the hackathon. But this is basically what came out of that last year's hacking session. Yes, so experimental DTool data-led DTool plugin with I think data-led export DTool and data-led import DTool, those two functionalities.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, and if you can share the link in the Matrix channel, that'd be great because my eyes are not quite that good.
GitHub repository is this one. I can post it here.
All right, thank you. Okay, next question. Yarek's always good for a question.
Question to Stephan. Where people should start to use this ecosystem of tools and how they could start, and maybe eventually could you collect the gallery of different models and how people start, like use them so there is easier?
Yeah, cool. Thank you for the question. So where people start would differ based on the use case and whether they actually have painful experiences that they want to avoid, and they think this is something that they can use in that way. We've used it in that educational kind of deployment. We have this DFG funding information collected. We have a deployment for this research consortium where individuals sites can decide themselves if they want to run something or if they just want to contribute to a kind of centralized deployment that we have for the consortium. The starting point for your own project for this is, I guess the question is like, do you want metadata that your current tools do not allow you to collect or to add or to link with each other? And if the answer is yes, that's a good first step. Then the start would be looking at what your metadata should look like. What type of things do you want people? Something that I actually routinely forget to think about when we develop the tools is also like, what's the purpose? It's discoverability. Like, then you should think about designing your schema or your metadata schema for improving the ability of users to find data. So, how that practically manifests is like, should this class have a field that says name or some weird code that only you understand and people wouldn't be able to search for that? But yeah, so that is the kind of framework to start from, but the physical starting point is see if the components that we already have work for you, for your use case. If not, just inherit from it, like create a LinkML schema, which is the way we do it currently. Set up a way to export that into the different formats that then the dump things and shackle view deployments can be generated from. What I want to actually suggest is if someone really is interested in getting this up and running for themselves. Maybe we can have like a hackathon session tomorrow. I'm very, very much up for that. Yeah, so please do that. And then, yeah, documentation, as we saw from one of the first talks, is also extremely important, and we need to get to that more. So I like the idea of this kind of gallery of use cases, especially because then it can also highlight the fact that it's a generic kind of product that can be applied in very different contexts. And I want to make the point that also the culture of development behind this is pretty much like data lab. Like data lab is agnostic to what the structure of the data is, or the domain of the data that's managed with the data data set. It just cares about the files. And then same for this metadata approach. It doesn't fixate on a specific domain or type of class or whatever. We try to enable the generic approach, but with very specific tools that give you that control.
Shameless plug. Those who don't know LinkML, it's developed at Berkeley National Lab, and we develop Pydantic to LinkML converter. So at least it could help you to get started with LinkML models if you already have Pydantic models.
Yeah, pretty cool.
All right. Next question.
I'm abusing the fact that I'm next to the
excellent.
microphone. I have a question for Dmitry. What looked really nice in the UI was the fact that you were able to visualize that MRI. And you mentioned how important it is to get a grasp for your data. But MRI is pretty like non-standard image, right? So is there a list of kind of images you support? How far do your visualizations go? Do you?
Yeah. So visualization is a very complicated and wide area. You cannot make like a perfect visualization for every single format, right? That's just not possible. And we support, like depending on domain, right? And we work with multiple domains. I showed you like MRIs and such, right? But that's only one domain we work with. We support only very, very basic thing, right? And in majority of the cases, that's actually not enough for users. Mm-hmm. But that's enough to make like some part of the intuition, right? And so it's usually like a good starting point for do like some deeper understanding of here, right? So when I showed this like product first time for like one of our customers, I was saying, oh, this is like how it looks like, and oh my God, that's exactly what we need. Like that looks amazing. I was saying like, okay, good. Is it enough? Like, will you like your researcher will use this? And they were saying like, no, they won't. Like it makes no sense. And he's saying like, our job is to kind of like eyeball the result so they can use their more specialized tool to go deeper, right? And another person was saying like, our job is like to go to the shop with a kid and give them a toy so they can spend like a days of playing with the toy later, right? And they will be playing with the toy like using like whole different set of tools, right? Our job is just to give them some ideas about the data. So a very limited set of tool visualization we support, but we just need to make it like enough to start play with. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody other than Jarek? No? Okay, then Jarek, you get it again.
As for those tools, is that list, probably you don't code them yourself, right? You use already existing ones.
Of course, yeah. We just like use
Do you
libraries.
have a list of those for different file types? Why am I asking? Because for our data archive, we do the same. So we store data and then we just point tools to the URLs. And then we could visualize nifties, we could browse NWB files, we have all ZAR files. So we could provide this library. And we do that for data sets that data.org we have similar. So could we maybe centralize such a registry which we could reuse across the tools then?
Well, yeah, and my dream is not just centralize this, right, but kind of like a build pluggable libraries when, like, for example, you use our tool or your tool, right, and you like, okay, but my format is special. What if I just hack together something and plug it in, right, and it just works, right? That's my like a dream. But Yeah, but like a centralized place, I don't know like how to deal with this. But I wish something exists, and I wish it's pluggable, so not only like tool developers can extend this, right? But also like end user can extend it by themselves. Like today, right? I work with something, I come up with some like brilliant idea. I mean, I thought it's brilliant, right? I quickly hack it together, right, and it just works. Or don't I like do it several times? You got the idea, right? But that's like a centralized marketplace of the tools, extendable marketplace. That's my dream.
Question for Stephan. The data model that you're using, is it a data model that is being reused by many? Do you have like, you know, a way of like pushing for crosswalks with other places? What's the interaction with the rest of the world in some ways?
Sorry, I think it's the best way that I can think of it is not the data model that we're using, but these components. So, and they map to existing standards out there. So there is not one way of thinking of what a data set is or what a person is that we prescribe. Like at the very bottom schema components, we have a few things that we think is so kind of ubiquitous that it's good to embed it into that model. And even with that, not necessarily structurally, but just a mapping. Like a data set that we think is commonly used on the web is like a DCAT data set. Then we say an exact mapping or even a broad mapping would be of our data set to that. So we don't directly then inherit from that vocabulary in a class sense. Yeah. Do you want to add to that, Michael, maybe?
Yeah, just I think there shouldn't be the impression that there is much of a data model. The only thing that is really critical is what Stephan talked about in his talk, that there must be a PID that is coming from some process, and the rest of the really foundational schema just allows you to make any sort of statements on whatever that entity is. And it doesn't prescribe any model, pretty much. And it also allows multiple alignments. So you can, some people believe in schema.org and some people believe in the OBO foundries, and this doesn't force you to make a choice. You can have alignments to all these things, so you can go in and out of metadata systems quickly.
I guess where I'm a bit, thinking is, I mean, the list specification you give, or the list, like, also the more complexity you have to kind of handle when some specific tools will be needing that kind of information. So I'm trying to map in that, the space in that, like with that axis.
I think that requirement or need can be achieved by then making an application-specific model.
True.
And that is the things that drive the examples that I showed. Like, you could see explicitly there's like a person, a form, a data set, a distribution, a data type. And these are things that we define specifically because we find them important for that use case, even though they themselves could be very generic too. So at that level, you bring in the connection to other systems. And then again, the idea is that the data that is generated from that can be like write a script to map that, transform it, translate it into something else, but with the linkage, because we now say this data object as a semantic definition from some known vocabulary. So you can grab those and then map it to a different object.
Thanks.
All right, and that wraps up our Q&A session. So a big thank you to all of our speakers. Lunch is just like yesterday, self-organized, and an hour and a half long. And then when we come back, it'll be another unconference session, so you have plenty of time to brainstorm what you want to talk about.